Hanukkah, Hanukkah, come light the menorah. Let's have a party, we'll all dance the hora. Gather round the table, we'll give.
Before you start, Rabbi, could you just, I know since 'tis the season, could you just touch a little, should Noahides observe a form of Hanukkah, not exactly a halakhic Hanukkah, but a Noahide Hanukkah? One notable person that touched on this, the Lubavitcher Rebbe Schneerson, he said the whole world should be lighting candles for Hanukkah, light up the whole world, including the non-Jews. So should non-Jews be celebrating something? My family does. We observe something similar to, we observe Hanukkah in our own way by reading Psalms and lighting candles, but we read Psalm 30, but there's some others too. But
well, I would say Hanukkah is just, pardon me for interrupting, the Hanukkah candles, lighting Hanukkah candles in the windows, whether outwardly so people on the street could see it, or your neighbors, or just for the family to know it. I think I'm just going to take this as a particular example. There are you all know that there are many mitzvot. The sages traditionally have numbered that there are 613 commandments in the Torah, in the Pentateuch. And those are meant for the children of Jacob, the children of Israel. While for the non-Jews, it was seen that there are seven basic ones. Now, that's a big difference between about 606 mitzvot, of a difference between the 613 and the 7. The only real reason, except for maybe a few details, for a non-Jew not to observe mitzvot seems to me, as what I've learned, is that they might be able to fool people that they're Jewish. There are some stories mentioned in the Talmud. A fellow boasted that from the times of the temple, he boasted to a rabbi who was living far up north, it seems even near Tyre in Lebanon of today, and a non-Jew boasted that he goes up to Jerusalem during the pilgrimage, and he eats from the fat of the lamb that's being, from the sacrifices that are being offered up in the temple. And the rabbi was shocked, and he said, "How do you do?" And he said, "Basically, I put on my talis, and maybe I put on my tefillin, and I go up to the temple, and I don't tell anybody I'm not Jewish." And he gets to, it's not a free meal, maybe it is a little bit, that people might have shared with him, but of course it's forbidden. It's not forbidden for non-Jews to have from sacrifices that were offered up in Jerusalem, up the temple. But this specific one, we're talking about the Paschal lamb. That was only supposed to be for Jews because it was our story. We left Egypt. But all the other mitzvot, the only problem generally, why non-Jew maybe shouldn't, and I'm not saying they shouldn't, was when we were worried that non-Jews would sort of masquerade, so to speak, as Jews. Today, and again, it's not written anywhere. The Torah doesn't say, it's not a prohibition anywhere, a non-Jew should not masquerade or should not dress up as a Jew. No, it was just a practical thing. The Jews wanted to know who Jews were, well, for dating, I guess, and for things like that, maybe for other things like that. So, and also the ulterior motives. Why would a non-Jew want to pass himself off as a Jew? So in those days, maybe they were very concerned about that. And there are still some rabbis that feel that there is somewhat of a concern, but I think most of us, and myself, Rabbi Cherki, who's our mentor, you hear Rabbi Lubavitch didn't seem to be too worried about the specific issue of Hanukkah candles. So I would say that any Noahide who is doing it, obviously for sincere reasons, because they want to spread light, they want to increase the spirituality in their homes, in their lives, whether they're with families or on their own or with friends, then I think anything that does it for you, go for it. I believe that non-Jews should start keeping the Sabbath. You don't have to be as strict maybe as I would be, but lighting Shabbos candles when at sunset on Friday, just before sunset on Friday, if you light it after sunset for a non-Jew, again, that's okay. But bringing light, even symbolically, metaphorically, into your home, into your lives, every Friday, after a hard week of work and of the treadmill that wears us down sometimes, and maybe even makes us feel less human, less spiritual, less godly, to have one day a week where we are, so to speak, we force ourselves, or we commit ourselves. I'm spending it with my family and maybe with other Noahides, like-minded people in my area, for a spiritual day, for a warm, friendly, loving day of remembering God, the Creator, remembering and trying to rearrange my priorities. I think it's also something everybody should be doing. So I think when it comes to Hanukkah candles, if a family of Noahides or an individual thinks this will add some spiritualness, spirituality, whatever you want to call it, light, spiritual light into my life, then by all means, I think it should be done. The children should know we're not Jewish. We're, and again, I've learned this over the last year through Rabbi Cherki, that we are part of Judaism, but we're sort of the non-Jewish department of Judaism. We are the Noahides that are part of the Jewish faith and of the Torah faith, of the biblical faith, without any distortions. At least we hope nobody, we're not trying to distort anything. We might have made mistakes along the way, but the Torah is pretty clear what God wants. Righteousness, helping one another, feeling that everybody around me is my brother and sister, peace, helping people that need help, the weak, the elderly, the feeble. Not all elderly are weak, but the feeble, placing spirituality and morality over greed and the materialistic way of life. Well, that's very clear from the Torah. It's, you don't need to be a genius to figure that one out. So any of the customs or the mitzvot, I can't tell you what to do or not to. You ask me what's right and what's wrong. I think it's right. But I believe Rabbi Cherki, I've heard him say, Rabbi Oury Cherki, who is the founder of our organization called Brit Shalom, a World Covenant, and we're studying according to his book. I think it comes out reverse, but Brit Shalom, a covenant of peace, which is the code that he wrote, the first code ever, comprehensive code 4, the 7 Noahide laws. He was asked by a righteous Noahide about when he was taught these 7 Noahide mitzvot, and he'd been observing them for years. And he said to Rabbi Cherki, okay, I want to be right with God according to the Torah. What do I have to do? Rabbi Cherki said, well, you keep the 7 Noahide mitzvot. And the fellow almost interrupted Rabbi Cherki and said, yeah, I know those, and I've been keeping those, but I want more. What should I do? Rabbi Cherki said, the supermarket of mitzvot, of commandments, of the 613, here it is before you, spread before you. Walk up and down the aisles, choose, select what you feel will bring you closer to God, Hashem, the Creator. Choose them carefully, choose them not to say one at a time, but choose them individually and see what works for you. Some may not work for you and you don't have to do them. You're doing it, if you're doing it out of sincerity, because I sincerely, truly, with all my, I want to try, even, you're not even ready to be committed to it. I want to try to grow closer to God and God the Creator, the one God. Well, then try it. Try it. You have the luxury to do that. And today we have knowledge, and we can spread the knowledge through the internet, through books. And of course, we're here to help. And so that's my answer to you, Frank. And I think, and I really believe Hanukkah, the problem is it comes around once a year. So there's an advantage because it's new, it's fresh every year. The kids get excited, they get some gifts, and they don't have to be expensive gifts, but just the gesture, and they come wrapped and so on. It also doesn't have to be all the 8 days. We had one Hanukkah party with our children and our grandchildren, and they were waiting for it. They loved it. We asked them what would they like. Nobody asked for something exorbitant, and thank God it was just a nice, together, grandparents, our children with their children. And honestly, all of you out there who are parents and grandparents, there's nothing more important, nothing that gives you more joy in life than having that relationship with your children and grandchildren. They are our treasures. They are our, hopefully, our greatest projects. And they don't always come out exactly as we want, and we can't guarantee the outcome. but we're going to invest in them love, caring, and concern. And they should always know that we do love them and we are concerned, and they should learn from us with respect. They don't have to accept what we say, but they should do it with respect and know that we have knowledge because we have experience. And hopefully they'll have enough love in them and respect for us that they'll definitely listen. Of course, you have to also choose the society you want your children growing up in, because the kids are out there, and what is out there is scary, is frightening. My wife and myself, sometimes we read something in the paper, or we see, we hear about a friend's child, or we it's out there on the streets, and we say, thank God our children were never there. Parties, because we did the Sabbath. So Friday night, the kids weren't going to go out to a party. It didn't even interest them. They went out with their friends, but it wasn't to a party. They went out to gather and to just, gossip maybe a little bit, to have some nosh and to fool around a bit. But, because of the Sabbath rules, they couldn't go to parties. They weren't going to discotheques. And you know what? This is what they grew up in, and this is what they were happy with. The same thing when it comes to drinking or drugs. You have to know you have to try to know who your kids are growing up with. And again, we all fail. And I have friends that have failed. I have brothers and sisters that have failed with some of their kids, not because they didn't try, but, you can, some people might try. You can't put a homing device on your kids, even though you can really today, technologically. If you give them a smartphone, you can, but I can tell you, my kids didn't get smartphones till they went away to school. We wanted to be able to contact them regularly. When they were in the home, we said, what do you need a smartphone for? You don't need a mobile phone at all, right? Come home, use the phones as much as you want. But, when you're in school, you're supposed to be in school. So yeah, you have to be smart. But the problem is you're fighting against what's acceptable socially. And that's a problem. So if you tell your kids, no, sorry, you can't have a mobile phone. But what do you mean? All my friends have mobile phones. I really don't know what you can answer the kids on that. But that's why, if you can, you should, and that's why we would love to see. We're still working on it, how to get Noahides to band together, and then bond together, and maybe raise their kids together, not as communes, but at least that way your kids are meeting up with other Noahide, which are sort of, at least hopefully, like-minded as yourself, that are looking for God's path, the path to tread on to keep these things going. So, but the Sabbath is every week. It's not too tedious. And you have, in the United States, you've got Sundays, which we don't have here in Israel. Many Jews here take Fridays off in preparation for the Sabbath. There are many schools that are closed on Fridays here, so that you can prepare for Shabbat. And if a family wants to go away and do something on the long Fridays of the summer, spring and summer, they can do that. So the kids will say, but wait a second, we want to be able to have fun on the weekend. Yeah, okay. So you have fun on Sunday. Sabbath is a day for the family. And really, kids that grow up in it, as long as the parents are conscious, you have to make it a fun day, or at least an enjoyable day, which means, yeah, you might sit down and play board games with the kids. You might shoot some baskets with them in the drive, not going out to the local public area, because it's mostly more of a family day. At our table, we have singing, we have sometimes storytelling. We do discuss the weekly portion, the Sedra, as we call it, from the Torah, and we challenge the kids. We challenge the kids with according to their level. I'm famous in my family. The kids, the grandchildren know, when they come to our table for the Sabbath, and quite often they're here, they travel and spend the whole Sabbath with us. It means we have to have a house big enough and facilities that they can all sleep over. They don't all come together, sometimes, yes. But I have a quiz towards the end of the big Sabbath meal, or at least one of them, sometimes both of them, the one in the evening and the one midday. I run a quiz for the kids, for all the grandchildren. They come, they sit behind my chair on the floor, and I ask them questions. And they have three categories they can choose from. They can choose from the weekly Sedra. They can choose from Judaism in general. It could be festivals, Jewish concepts, or it can be something about, as a Zionist ideal, as we see it as a fulfillment of the prophecy here at Brit Olam. We believe that the state of Israel, it's not perfect, but we're working on making it in the vision, forming it molding it in the vision that we were told, instructed by the prophets. We're talking about justice, things that I mentioned before, helping, making sure, protecting the weak, and so on, and peace. So the kids can choose they can choose the category that they want. And obviously, I have a few grandchildren that are toddlers, but they already know to cover their eyes for the Shema. They might peek when they recite "Hear, O Israel," or when their parents, when they put them to bed and they recite the Shema with them. So I would ask them, a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, what do you do when you say the Shema? Sometimes they don't know. They look at their older cousins or brothers and sisters, and then they get it, and then they go like this, and they get a little sweet. But these are things that are so important, I believe, in everybody, to make our societies and this world a place that is truly a temple of God, a place that God would want us to be, would want to be here because he'd feel at home in this place. Well, the Sabbath is a very important tool. So, as Rabbi Cherki said, when you're ready, the supermarket's open. If you need, somebody to recommend it, you can turn through you, Frank, and we can discuss this on one of these sessions. How to keep the Sabbath. Actually, this morning in the office with Rabbi Goldberg, Chaim Goldberg, who was our executive chair, I said to him, you know what? Why don't we set up a place of worship for Noahides in Jerusalem? Now, I'm not talking about a permanent place yet. We're not ready for that yet. But why don't we have a weekly prayer session for Noahides in Jerusalem? First of all, for there are non-Jews living here amongst us. And I'm not talking about the Muslims that, as we say in Yiddish, gesundheit, may God bless them, as long as they want to live with us in peace and live with the world in peace. That's okay, until they're ready to accept to be Noahides. But they're here. But there are many non-Jews that come to live here. Some of them are missionaries. Some of them are coming here to live and be close to the area where Jesus lived. But there are many that are disillusioned Christians, as many of you are, or have met people like that. And many of them would probably, I would think, would flock to a place like this, as long as they still believe in God. If we said, once a week, you come when you want, come for a prayer session, we'll have some singing, have some studying, some bonding there, and that's the people who are here permanently or regularly. And then we could have also tourists that come. We could spread the word around that there is this place. And we'd figure out how we could also broadcast through, Facebook, through YouTube, through whatever. We could broadcast the service. So I said to this Rabbi, why don't we do this? And he said, yeah, it's a good idea. Why don't we try that? And then hopefully through that, we can start, pooling thoughts about how to bring more light and more of this supermarket of Jewish ideas into people's homes and into people's lives. All right, can we begin now? We have a few more minutes left. All right, let me get it on screen. And again, reminding everyone, whenever you have a question or a comment, please either forward it to Frank or leave it as a comment on the recording on YouTube, and we'll try to address it at the next time.
Sorry, I was trying to answer somebody there, but
sure.
Getting back to the original question anyway with Hanukkah, for any Noahides that may see this, we don't try to compete with Christmas. And this year they both happened at the same time. We put a thing on the door. We put our candles in the window. We have a little flag we hang on a pole out by the street. That's pretty much it on the outside. Anything we do on the inside is just for us. And like you said, a small gift for the small children, not for the older. But I guess, if you wanted to do it for the older, it'd be fine. But we definitely don't try to compete with Christmas. And that's the approach dealing with our children we take, is that they have to be in this world. So therefore they have to function in this world, this society. They got to know all the various traditions and holidays of everybody and understand it and know why we don't do it in order to fully understand our position. So instead of trying to shun it all and hide from it all, I mean, we keep it off of, say, we don't sit around watching Christmas movies or anything like that, but we will explain them to them, what they're about. And the schools have been really great. here in America. I have to give, our local school props for that, because we explained our position, and that's another thing that Noahides should probably take, is we always start with, we're not Jewish and we're not trying to be Jewish. We're not trying to look Jewish, but we cling to Judaism. We only subscribe to what as the Old Testament or the older form of religion. And that's the way we will begin every explanation, because we're trying to explain it in a way that they will understanding where they're coming from. And
Very wisely.
so, but that's our approach. It seems to work for us, but I know,
So any of you out there
I know
who
I
are,
sidetracked you a long ways here, but we don't have much to cover today.
but you know what, I think it's going to be much more interesting, occasionally, definitely, to interject with these points, because I think many Noahides out there are wondering, what's the next step? How do I take this further? Am I allowed to?
Yeah.
So another thing that somebody has brought up, and here at Brit Shalom to our office, a Noahide has asked that many of them don't have, are looking for some kind of guidance. And I'd like to emphasize, we are not your gurus. We are mentors. We are trying to be mentors. We are trying to be teachers. A teacher means we have to try to convince you through wisdom, hopefully through reasoning, what we think is the right path. But Rabbi Cherki also has pointed out, what's right for you, Frank, in Tennessee, may not be right for somebody in Sichuan, or whatever that is called, or somebody in Thailand who wants to be a Noahide. So you have to use your own reasoning. And if you're not sure, you can question, you can write and comment, you can ask us. So somebody wrote us and suggested, why don't we have some kind of like online community where we meet occasionally, and just to we have to figure out how would we do it, like have a free conversation. Obviously, it would have to be monitored to keep it respectful, in case, hopefully, I'm optimistic, it could work. People would come in there with an issue. We could discuss it, whether briefly or deeply or extensively. And that way people felt that they were getting some kind of support and guidance with their doubts, with their questions. So we're just also, that's in the offing. We'll see what the most practical way will be to do that. All right, so what paragraph are we up to, Frank?
We are chapter 5, item number 33. But I was just going to say that that's a great idea you just mentioned, because so much of this at this point is online and we're so spread out. Gradually it's increasing, but still we're in the infancy of it. And so we are privileged to live at this time and this point in history to see these prophecies unfold, clinging to the shirt tail of the Jew to say, show me the way to God. So I get excited. I better stop, because I get excited about this stuff, and
get excited, Frank. Get it, so you'll inspire us.
It's an exciting time to be alive and see this unfold. So
I agree with you. The tolerance, first of all, as you mentioned, you found in the educational system in Tennessee, let alone, and I'm sure it exists in many parts of the United States, Canada, and other countries, the United Kingdom. I don't want to belittle any other kingdom, any other country. But first of all, you'll find more and more tolerance amongst people. Again, it's not enough, but it's there, it's out there already. Then the other thing is, we have the technology now. The fact that I can be sitting here in my home in Tekoa, overlooking the Dead Sea, 15 minutes. I just got back home, actually, and we traveled through Jerusalem, the holy city, and that we can have this conversation, you sitting in Tennessee and I, people sitting in other parts of the world. It's an amazing thing. And this is what how do we spread the word? So yes, get excited by all means, any of you. I get excited because, my children sometimes ask me, my brothers and sisters ask me, you're actually teaching people in Tennessee? And I said, yeah, this is the Noahide movement. We hope it's picking up momentum, and it is part of this prophecy that Isaiah spoke about many, many years ago, centuries ago. And Rabbi Tuvia Singer, who I assume many of you have listened to, and I think he's a fantastic teacher, that he was asked a question, or at least he was posing the issue. Isaiah lived, let's say, 3,000 years ago, approximately, and he prophesied this from Zion shall spread the Torah and the word of God from Yerushalayim, from Jerusalem. So, but he's talking about the Messianic times. So why would he have said this 3,000 years ago, when 3,000 years later, we're still not there? So Rabbi Singer had a very good perspective. He said, Isaiah, yes, when the Messiah will come, and hopefully any day now, right? Not much optimism about that, but he could. Yes, the world will be like that. Everybody, the whole world will at least focus, will gaze towards Jerusalem to find God's wisdom, to know what God wants of them. But it's also the vision of what we're supposed to be aiming at or aiming for. And we don't just sit back and wait for the Messiah. Many Jews are still doing that and not returning to the land of Israel. And the Jewish nation, you could say, did that for centuries because they were too frightened, or there was no real practical way of coming back to the Holy Land, the promised land that was promised to them. But Rabbi Singer was saying that, yeah, but just you should know this is what we're aiming for. So not everything we were able to implement then or for all these years, but there were things that we were able to. But the idea is it was our vision, the vision of Isaiah, that was sort of guiding us. This is what we should be hoping for, not only hoping for, working towards. So yes, it is an inspiring time, Frank, and I think we have to try to always be inspired. God is watching. God is giving each one of us a mission, everybody according to where they live, their capabilities, how inspired they are at that moment. But we all have to band together to do this. No rabbi, no one Noahide, no one whoever leader can change this world. Of course, the Messiah, right? We're not even sure he's going to do it on his own. He's going to bring it about, and it's going to happen in their times, in his times. But do we assume the Messiah is just going to click his fingers or snap his fingers and it's going to happen? It could. God could perform miracles like that. But I think we think a bit more rationally, and we say, yes, I believe he'll probably be of course, a righteous person, a wise person with leadership capabilities, with the fear of God and the love of God instilled and burning inside of him, or lining him inside. And he's going to gather around him people that are going to want to say, this is the man that I want to work for. If I can, this is an interesting story. I think I've learned from this. Years ago, I was invited for a private interview to meet a rabbi who some thought he was the Messiah. Some claim he has the Holy Spirit rests upon him. I don't want to sound Christian-like, that he has visions, but not visions like, pardon me again, that I've heard some people in Christianity have these visions. No, but he knows things that there's no rational way he could have known. He's not a mentalist. He doesn't do magic tricks. And I have a friend who's completely rational. And he said, I don't know how he knew something that was going on in our office that he couldn't have known. Anyway, so I asked my friend, how do you explain this? He said, first go meet him. I went to meet him. And again, I was very apprehensive. I wasn't worried. I just, very apprehensive. My family knew where I was going. I traveled to Tiberias on the Sea of Galilee to meet this rabbi. He was living up there at that time. And I was interviewed. I had a private interview with him. I forget how long it took. He asked me things about my life, about my family. He asked me, do I need a blessing? Am I having any problems? And I said, honestly, Baruch Hashem, thank God. I have a gorgeous wife who I get along with, and we love each other, and we manage, we build things together, our family life. Our eldest daughter, I'm so proud of. My second son, I'm so proud of. They're kids, but thank God, I thank God every day for the family that I have, and for the children, for the love of my wife, and so on. And then he sort of like, almost, why have I come to him? And I had sort of reminded, you invited me. You wanted me to come. He wanted some advice from me. Anyway, it was a strange atmosphere. It was a strange interview. I did ask him a question about something, and I asked him, how do you know this, Rabbi? And he said, I've been told this from the heavens. That's what he told me. Now, honestly, I'm a respectful guy. I'm a rabbi myself. I'm not the greatest of rabbis. There are rabbis, my mentors, my teachers, and some of my peers are greater scholars and, intellectually greater than I am. But I had to bite my tongue not to smirk. Really? What? What is this here? Anyway, he was wrong. His prediction was wrong anyway. So I assume it wasn't the heavens at all. But anyway, on the way home, I made a phone call to the house just to say I'm coming home. So they shouldn't worry. It was late already at night. I'm getting on the road. My daughter, my eldest daughter, she answered. I think she was about 18 at the time. She said, Abba, Dad in Hebrew. Where were you? And I explained, I went to meet that rabbi. And she said, oh, how was it? And she had heard about this rabbi. I said, how was it? The only thing I said to her, he's not the Messiah. So she laughed and she said, but Abba, you're not the kind of person to believe that this rabbi or that rabbi is the Messiah. I said, I know, but that doesn't mean I don't want to meet the Messiah. I actually went there and I thought maybe there's 1% chance, hopefully, maybe, that he is the Messiah. You think I don't want to meet the Messiah? I was hoping he was. I'm disappointed. I'm coming home now. Okay. So when I went back to my friend and I said, it was a funny or a strange kind of interview. And it was all okay. It wasn't spooky or anything like that, even no magic. But I said to him, how do you explain that this fellow knows things that there's no rational way of explaining? He said, listen, we believe in a God, in a universal one God that loves and is in touch with every human being. The question is, does the human being realize God is speaking out to them? Some people have got a gift from God. What they do with that gift doesn't mean they're the Messiah. It doesn't mean that we have to accept their advice. They could be making a mistake. The fact that they know certain things because through their spirits, through their souls, they might know things, doesn't give them any authority. So this guy, he's a rabbi himself, my friend. And he was saying, so, now you know who he is. He's an interesting fellow. He might have some interesting insights into the Torah, wisdom of the Torah, but it doesn't mean he should lead people, right? He's maybe not the right character. So we have to wait for the Messiah, for the right kind of guy. And Rambam Maimonides, in his Laws of Kings, he makes it clear. The Messiah, the only way to really test the Messiah obviously has to be a person who has wisdom of the Torah, that he has knowledge of the Torah. Right? That's one thing. He has to be a leader. He has to be, as I mentioned before, God-fearing and God-loving. And he has to achieve certain things. And this is what disqualifies, the Jewish boy Jesus from being the Messiah. He didn't accomplish what the Messiah is supposed to do. He's supposed to have the temple rebuilt. The temple was, standing in his time. He's supposed to get the Jews to return to Israel. Most of the Jews in his time, at the beginning of Christianity was later. But when Jesus lived, most of the Jews were living outside of Israel. They were living from Persia to Egypt, to Judea, to the Galilee, to Rome, and probably further west than that. So he didn't succeed in bringing the Jews back. The Messiah is supposed to reestablish the house of David, the kingdom of David, whether a democracy, if you want, or it doesn't make a difference. A ruler from the line of David has to sit on the throne in Jerusalem. He did not achieve that. How about world peace? There have been more wars in his name than in any other, well, at least till recently, Islam. But even so, how many Christian wars have there been? So he did not accomplish those things. Sorry, can't be the Messiah. So the true Messiah will have those previous traits that I mentioned, will somehow bring about world peace, the return of the Jewish exiles to establish Judaism and the Jewish culture, Jewish civilization, God's people in the Holy Land. A king of Judah, house of David, or a prime minister, we're not sure exactly how it's going to look, ruling from Jerusalem. And is that it? Yeah, those are things. So Now, so we have to be inspired, wait for him, be ready for him. And when we feel that he's the guy, let's join him. Right now, and I don't think he ever said he's the Messiah. I'm sure he hasn't. Rabbi Oury Cherki, I'm willing to place my bets on him. Now, and I have some other mentors also. He's a guy working in the right direction. He's a very humble guy. He's got a funny sense of humor. I saw him also in the office today. And he's an optimistic guy, and he truly wants to, through the Brit Olam, to bring more and more people under the light, to share the light, to spread the light of the Torah values and of God's spirituality in the world. So I think let's give him some more support.